Hola, Facebook. It's Beto here, your daily divinity coach. Here for episode 24 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. This is the episode you've all been waiting for. This episode is entitled Hopi Prophecy. Again, Hopi Prophecy, the end of the Mayan calendar, and Aztlán, our call to manifest immortality. I field more questions about this topic than any other topic. This topic meaning the fifth world, the end of the fourth world, the beginning of the fifth world, prophecy, Mesoamerican or Native Indigenous American prophecy. I mean, this is the topic that you all asked. Anyhow, so today is Sunday, November 29th, 2020, and again, I'm Beto, your daily divinity coach, and we're just going to give a couple minutes for some people to join. I do want to tag, oh no, Emmylou, shout out to Emmylou, so I didn't need to tag Emmylou today, so thank you. But again, I'm going to give a couple minutes for some people to join. While we do that, I'm just going to give a brief introduction. If you've heard my introductions before and you're watching the recorded video, go ahead and forward a couple minutes. But again, my name is Beto. I'm your daily divinity coach. I'm here for episode number 24 of my Sunday Weekly Revival series. I do three things on social media. I post every day what I call my daily divinity coaching. It's about a paragraph long. So I do that every day except Sundays, because Sundays I'm here with you live for my Sunday Weekly Revival, which takes place every Sunday with the exception of the first Sunday of the month, because the first Sunday of the month I do my monthly mailbag. And that's going to happen actually next week. Next week will be the first Sunday in December. So next week, Sunday, December 6th, I'm going to do my monthly mailbag number 2, where I take your questions, your pre-submitted questions, and I provide thoughtful responses. So if you have questions, please submit them via IM, DM, if you have my phone number, text, or you can now submit via my website, www.dailydivinitycoach.com, where I also have a new page about reverse birthdays. So that's probably the second most question I get asked. Our topic people ask about is reverse birthdays. So I do have that now on www.dailydivinitycoach.com. I have a whole section or a whole page, a web page on reverse birthdays. So please visit. You can also submit there on my website. You can submit, again, a question for my monthly mailbag. You can request one-on-one divinity coaching for up to 45 minutes. You can request scientific prayer. And you can also request these bracelets. I know you can't see them, but I produce these bracelets. They're free. They're a set of 3 manifest bracelets. One reads manifest justice, it's gray. One reads manifest abundance, it's blue. And one reads manifest immortality, and it's black. And I give this set away as free. I just need a shipping address. And if it's within the US, it's always free. But till the end of the year, so till December 31st, if you live within North America or Europe, I'll also ship free. So if you haven't received your bracelets yet, please reach out, IM, DM, text, or you can submit a form via the website, www.dailydivinitycoach.com, where you can also now learn about reverse birthdays. A couple more things about me. I am a Master of Divinity. I hold a Master of Divinity degree. I am a graduate of Harvard University Divinity School. I actually still live in the area, not far from the school. I live here in the Boston area. And I'm a pluralist, so I teach y'all. So I have followers of all kinds of different faiths and no faith. I actually received this morning a very encouraging note. It was heartfelt, and I really appreciate it. Very encouraging. This gentleman who watches the episode said, "Beto, I love your episodes. I just want to let you know I'm not spiritual, but I really like your episodes, especially how you weave in pop culture." And this episode, I won't be weaving in a lot of pop culture. I'll try and weave in a little bit, but next week I promise, or the week after I promise to weave in more. But so that's my introduction. So I just want to go ahead and get started with the content. We have some really rich content today, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this here. All right. So last week we talked about the five W's, right? Who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? And how that's very important when you're doing any kind of research, whether it's academic, whether you're a journalist, right, and you're doing research. It's very important to address those 6 things, right? Those 6 questions, right? The who, the what, the where, the when, the why, and the how. And last Sunday we addressed 3 of those, right? The what, the how, and the who. So the what, last week, what was the what? The what was this, the elixir of life, or immortality, also known as the fountain of youth, is a spiritual reality, right? A spiritual possibility. And we learned this from Prentice Mulford, the articulator, the originator, the pioneer of the law of attraction, Prentice Mulford. We also learned about the how, right? Mulford also talked about how, and I'm paraphrasing here, how manifesting the elixir of life, or immortality, right? Manifesting the fountain of youth can be taught, right? But it can't be bought, bartered, or stolen, right? So it can't be commodified, right? It's internal, right? It's a spiritual thing. And we also talked last week about the who, right? And I used Toni Morrison, right? Toni Morrison was won the Nobel Prize in Literature, the Pulitzer Prize, a literary giant, right? Toni Morrison. And she talked about how the future being in the hands of those that have been pressed to the margins, right? So the who's going to manifest the elixir of life, the elixir of immortality, the fountain of youth. It's going to be those that have been pressed to the margins, right? They are going to own the future, right? Others have, like the great teacher, talked about the meek, right? The meek inheriting the earth. The Hopi, who we'll talk about today, talked about the humble, right? The humility was a big part of their culture. The traditionalists, the traditional Hopis, didn't have a priestly class. Their priests were ordinary folk, right? Like the great teacher, he was a carpenter, right? I myself, I have a secular job. Humility was important to them. For me, I like the term spiritual misfits. I think it's fun, it's catchy, it's poppy, right? Pop culture. But it's, we're all referring to the same thing here. Whether it's Toni Morrison, whether it's me, whether it's the great teacher, whether it's the Hopi, we're all referring to the same thing. People who've been pressed to the margins. So anyhow, this Sunday, there's 3 things, right? 3 questions left that we need to address. So this Sunday we'll be addressing those 3 questions: the where, the when, and the why. I'll go ahead and change this here. So my first reference is the Book of the Hopi. If you haven't read this book, or if it's been some time like me, I actually reread it this weekend. The Book of the Hopi was written in 1963 by Frank Waters. Frank Waters, an American writer. He was actually nominated 5 times for the Nobel Prize in Literature, but unlike Toni Morrison, she actually won. Frank Waters never won, but nonetheless, 5 times. He's an accomplished writer. His father was Native American, Indigenous American. His father was Cheyenne, or part Cheyenne anyhow. And so Frank always had an interest, right, in Native or Indigenous American culture, life, rituals, religion. And so he ended up writing the Book of the Hopi. He actually, the Hopi, their religion was oral, right? It was based on an oral tradition. It was based on ritual, right? You do it. And so for the first time, it was actually recorded, right? And it was recorded by Frank Waters. He went and he interviewed all the Hopi, right? Orally, obviously. And he had a partner named White Bear, who was a Hopi. He was actually part of the Coyote clan of the Hopi. And White Bear spoke both languages. He was fluent, bilingual. And so he transcribed, right? He transcribed for Frank all the oral interviews. And so then from that, Frank developed the Book of the Hopi. There is some controversy behind the book, but people say it's probably because it was such a popular book. Prentice Mulford, right, last week we talked about his book, Thoughts Are Things. I haven't heard a lot of controversy about his book, but probably because it wasn't a popular book. This one actually was a popular book. It sold quite a bit. It was used in a lot of different places and venues. So there was some controversy behind it, but nonetheless, it's what we have, right? It's a reference. So anyhow, in the book, it starts out by talking about the different worlds or suns, right? Different worlds, and how the Hopi, the Hopi belief of these different worlds, their creation story, if you will. So this is what they believed, that there was the first world, right? And the first world was called Topela, which means endless space. And in this first world, people lived simply, humbly, with animals, right? And however, they began to divide, right? They quarreled, they had conflict and whatnot. As a result, they weren't doing what they're supposed to do, right? To live humbly and to get along, right? As a result, that first world, right, Topela, endless space, was destroyed by fire, right? The Great Spirit, right? God, Allah, the universe, the divine, said, all right, scratch that, let's start all over again. So then they went into the second world, right? And the second world was called Topa, right, or dark midnight. And in this world, the people advanced, right? They advanced and they started developing villages, right? So in the first world, they're living humbly with the animals. Now they're developing villages. They began to trade and barter, right? They became business people, right? They're trading and bartering. However, something happened. They weren't satisfied. The more they traded and bartered, the more they wanted. Materialism started sinking in, right? As a result, conflict erupted, wars between villages, right? Conflict between villages. The divine, the Great Spirit, God, Allah, the universe said, all right, let's scrap that second world. And it was frozen in solid ice. All right, let's start again. And so we move on to the third world. The third world, called Cuscurza, I'm probably not pronouncing that right. I felt a little bit more confident about the first two worlds, but Cuscurza, here the people again advance again. And they start creating big cities, right? Countries, a whole civilization. So quite advancement from the previous two worlds, especially the first world where they're living humbly with animals. Right now they're creating a whole civilization. But again, people aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Corruption comes, war results, and the Great Spirit decides we're going to destroy this world as well, right? Scrap the third world, and it's destroyed by water and floods, which is very important. This idea that the third world was destroyed by water and floods for a multitude of reasons, not the least of which is that it links to the what the Maya believed. The Maya also believed that the third world or the third sun was destroyed by water and floods. Also, the Hebrew text, right? The ancient text, the Old Testament talks about the flood, right? Noah, right? The story of Noah, how the world was destroyed by floods and then started all over again. So very, very important to note that. Now we move to the fourth world. The fourth world, I'm going to struggle here, Tuakashi, T-U with the accent on the U, W-A-Q-A-C-H-I, Tuakashi, means the world complete. And it's very important to understand this here. World complete. What that means is there's not going to be a construction, a creation of another world. This is it. This is what we got, right? And this world is a little different than the other worlds. How so, Bethel? It's a little different because this world is not as beautiful and easy as the previous worlds, the previous suns, the previous worlds. How is it not so easy, not so beautiful? Well, there's height and depth, right? There's big mountains, there's valleys, right? There's heat and cold. I live out here in Boston. Oh my God, some of the days in the summer, I mean, you're just sweating the humidity, right? Those of you who live in the desert, you know about the heat, right? The heat that comes down. Also here in the Northeast, we have snow. It gets really cold. Like now today's the sun's out, but in the wintertime it can get really cold, right? So now you got heat and cold to deal with. You got beauty, right? I know a lot of you live in California near the beach. Beautiful, right? San Diego, gorgeous. La Jolla, Malibu, Monterey, Pacific Grove. Gorgeous, right? Pebble Beach. But you have barrenness too. You have places where it's tough to grow things, right? It's very barren in the desert. And that's actually where the Hopi originate, right? The Hopi means peace, people of peace. And they actually settled, right? It's not where they originated, it's where they settled. They're right, they're around today. They're in New Mexico, right? In barren areas in New Mexico. But overall, they're in the Southwest, right? So anyhow, what happened in the fourth world? Well, people are divided. This is very important. People are divided into clans, right? Groups or clans, better stated clans. And they're told by the Great Spirit, right? Allah, God, the universe, the divine, to migrate, right? And they're not to settle down. This is very key. They're not to settle down till they end their fourfold migrations. So some started east, right? Then they went west, and they went north, they went south. Some started south, and they went north, and they went east, they went west. So everybody, went in different points, but they're all supposed to complete these fourfold migration. And when they left, when they broke apart, the Hopi broke apart into clans to start these migrations, they told themselves, may we meet again, may we meet again. And so anyhow, man is created, right? Man is created, and Hopi believe this, man is created perfect in the image of the divine. However, worlds end, right? Because man, or human, falls from grace, right? Humans fall from grace, right? They do the wrong thing, right? They get sucked in by materialism, right? They create wars and conflict, right? And it's not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to all get along, right? So then the Hopi believe that the fourth world, this world complete, right, is the full expression, right? The full or final expression of humans' ruthless materialism and imperialistic will. So this is the final one, right? This is as bad as we get, right? As humans, this is as bad as we get, right? This ruthless imperialistic will that's led to genocides and wars and world wars, right? Genocide, human slavery, institutional racism, xenophobia, sexism, all this stuff, right? All this negative stuff that's not supposed to be is all manifested improperly in the fourth world. It's the full expression of it. So, what happened during those migrations? This is very, very important to understand. During those migrations, when people were going, the Hopi clans were going east, west, north, south, they all tell a story in the book of Hopi, or there's hundreds of tales, I should say. There's hundreds of tales about this place called the Red City of the South, right? Palakwapi. It's right there, right? Palakwapi. Also known as the Red House. Lots of stories, lots of tales of this Red House down south. They don't know whether it was in Mexico, they don't know whether it was in Central America or it was in South America. More than likely Mexico or Central America, but there's this place called the Red House. And a lot of the clans talked about visiting the Red House on their migrations. Hundreds of tales. And in this Red House, there are these kachinas, K-A-C-H-I-N-A-S, kachinas. And they were spirits in the form of ordinary humans, right? So they were thought to be superhumans, so to speak, right? These spirits in the form of ordinary people. Beto believes that these are actually ordinary people, but they were superhuman because they were manifesting what? Immortality. But anyhow, the Hopi believe they're spirits in the form of ordinary people. And they worked out of a ceremonial building that resembled a pyramid, right? It resembled a pyramid. And they taught, is what they did. They taught in the ceremonial building. And in the first floor of the ceremonial building, they taught the history and meaning of the first three worlds and the purpose of the fourth world. Awesome, right? I love it. And the second floor, what did they teach? They taught the structures and functions of the human body and how the highest function of the human mind is to understand how the one great spirit, right, the divine, Allah, God, the universe, works within humans, right? You know I love this. What happens on the third floor? The third floor, they teach the working of nature and the uses of all kinds of plants, not the least of which to help with any sort of diseases or illnesses, that type of thing. And then what happens on the fourth floor? The fourth floor, they learn the workings of the planetary system. So how the stars affect the climate, the crops, and humans themselves. Great stuff, right? I mean, if I'm migrating, right, I'm going to hang out here for a while, right, in this red house. I mean, you're learning about the body, the functions of the body. You're learning about planetary system. You're learning about the divine, right, the great spirit. I mean, awesome, right? This is what they're learning here at the Red House. They had a final instruction before the clans, right, the Hopi clans were to move on and leave the Red House, and the instruction was this. Really a prophecy. When you reach your final destination or your permanent settlement, there will be 3 other races that will come, right? And we know this happened, right? The Europeans came, right? The Africans, the Asians, right? 3 other races will come, and you're supposed to live in what? Peace and harmony, and brotherhood and sisterhood with the other races. That was the prophecy that came from the Red House. So anyhow, I'm going to flip this. So now we're at the 5th world, right? So the 5th world. The 5th world is, according to the Hopi, the spiritual, right? Some would say physical, but really the spiritual destruction of materialism. That's the key. It's the end of that ruthless materialism, that imperialistic world will, right, that has led to all of this, all these world wars, all of this genocide, all of this, the human slavery, human trafficking, all this, you know, institutional racism, the sexism, the xenophobia, all this bad stuff, right? All this stuff that keeps us from living together in brotherhood, sisterhood, right? Living in peace and harmony. It's the humble people, right? Like I said before, Toni Morrison talked about those that have been pressed to the margins, right? The great teacher talks about the meek. I like the spiritual misfits. I like that term. But the Hopi talk about the humble people, right? And they are the ones that are going to get together spiritually, destroy materialism, and learn how to live as a brotherhood or a sisterhood. This is important because the Maya believe much of the same, right? They talked about how there's 4 previous worlds, right? How the 3rd world ended in floods, right? The Maya, right? The 3rd world ended in floods. And in this 5th world, that we will learn to live in peace and harmony. And my reference for this is a book by Anthony Avini. And it's called The End of Time, The Maya Mystery of 2012. And it was written in 2009. It was actually written before 2012. And Anthony Avini was a professor. He's now retired at Colgate University. He was the founder or the pioneer of the field of cultural astronomy. He spent most of his life studying Mayan calendars. So that's a great reference if you want to do some reading on this. But anyhow, the Maya believe that we also will live in peace and harmony. That's the 5th world. That's what the 5th world is about. There's not going to be a destruction, a physical destruction where the world disappears and then a new world's created. Nothing like that. That's already been done. The world complete, right? This is the 4th world, the world complete. The 5th world is about spirituality, right? When? So we talked about the why, now the when, and we'll get to the where. When? The 3rd world, according to the Maya, the 3rd world of the 3rd sun, ended by floods on August 11, 3114 BC. Long time ago, right? And the next creation, the 5th sun or the 5th world, will take place at the end of the 5,126-year long count, or December 21st, December 23rd, right in there, 2012, which is already passed, right? Which begs the question, if it already passed, why hasn't the spiritual destruction of materialism already taken place? Well, according to the Maya, we're in the in-between time, right? We're in the in-between time. You know, the forces are gathering their people, right? They're getting ready to duke it out spiritually, right? And then materialism will end, and we'll all live in peace and harmony, right? And I've talked about this. I use the word great race, right? I don't talk about spiritual warfare, but I talk about the great race, right? With the Silicon Valley billionaires, right? These leaders of these billion and trillion dollar corporations, how they're trying to manifest immortality, but it's us, right? The humble, the meek, the spiritual misfits, those pressed to the margins that are going to manifest immortality, right? It's for us to do, because why? Immortality can't be bought, bartered, or stolen, right? It's not a commodity. It's not for them to manifest. It's for us to manifest, and that's when we're going to experience that peace and harmony. But anyhow, I want to make a note about the Mexica Azteca in accordance with this. So the Mexica Azteca, actually, they're a little bit different. It'd be nice if they aligned, but they actually talk about 6 worlds, and that we're moving now into the 6th world, not the 5th world. So they added an extra world, the Mexica Azteca did. And they talk about how the 5th world, the Hopi talk about spiritual destruction, the Mexica Azteca insert earthquakes. And I've interpreted this as the movements, right? The movements of the people, right? The not just the movement of, not just the migration, which I'll talk about in a second, but also the earthquakes of people marching, right, and protesting. I talked about Black Lives Matters and other protest movements, right? The earthquakes, the ground shaking underneath people's feet, right, when they're marching and protesting. But anyhow, they talked about, but they also talked that the world was complete too. There wouldn't be the creation of another world, right? This world wasn't going to end completely, that the earthquake was not to be taken literally, so to speak. So anyhow, now we're at the why, all right? We talked about the why, the where. We talked about the why, the when, and now we're at the where, right? The final one. So this is very important. The Hopis, right? The Hopi believe that the early Mayas and Mexica Azteca were aberrant Hopi clans who failed to complete their full fourfold migration. Interesting, right? They're actually Hopis, the Maya and the Mexica Azteca. They just didn't finish their migrations, incomplete migrations. Remember, the Hopi, all about space, right? Space is very important to them. The Maya, the Mexica Azteca, all about time. Time was very important. We know that. The calendars are unbelievable, right? The complexity of the Maya and the Mexica Azteca calendars. They're all about time, right? The Hopi, all about space. So what happened? They didn't complete their migration. Well, this is Bethel's theory, right? No, I'm not basing anything on research, just on myself, right? A descendant, right? A descendant of this tradition. If I'm one of these, right, and I am, right, a descendant of the Mexica Azteca, the Maya, if I am a descendant and I'm on this migration, and it's my final migration, right, I've already gone north, I've already gone east, I've already gone west, now I'm going south, and I come upon the red house, guess what? I'm hanging for a while, right? Especially on that second floor, right? Where they're teaching me about the Great Spirit, about the divine. You know me, you've watched my shows, you've heard me talk. Some of you have a personal relationship with me, some of you are my family. You know I'm hanging in that second floor, right? I don't want to go back up north, right? And I'm guessing that's what happened. They said, OMG, we're learning about planetary systems, about the function of the human body, about nature and plants and the divine, about the former worlds and all this kind of stuff. Let's hang for a while, right? And so that's Bethel there. That's Bethel talking. And, that's probably true. I'll have to ask some folk who know better about this than I do. But anyhow, the where. Aztlán. Very important. AZTL accent on the AN. Aztlán. What is Aztlán? It's the actual place of origin of the Mexica Azteca. All right? The actual place of origin of the Mexica Azteca. Chicano activists, right? Especially, I'm one, except that I wasn't around in the 60s. But the Chicano activists, particularly in the 60s, claim that the tradition of Aztlán, they claim it. They say, this is us, right? We're Aztlán. We have made the final migration from Mexico, right, to the Southwest U.S., right? To the place of our origin, right? This is what they said back in the 60s, right? They claim Aztlán as their own. They said, we've done it. We've made the final migration. We're back. We're back home where we belong. This is important because for a long time, it was thought of as a myth, right? People were saying, oh, that's just a myth, right? These Chicanos, they don't know what they're talking about. They'll, this final migration, this is their home. But it's not a myth. It's actually reality, right? And the Hopis, right? What they said, it's actually reality. Because if and here's my reference, the map of Huachintan 2, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, but here, this thing here, the map of Huachintan 2. This was a map that was actually presented as a bequest. It was actually given to my former Harvard University Divinity School co-advisor, David Carrasco. I mentioned before that my advisor was Cornel West, and Cornel West was my advisor, but I had a co-advisor. And my co-advisor at Harvard University Divinity School was David Carrasco. And I think his name's down here, but anyway, David was given this map. He was given this map. And what is the map? The map is it was painted by indigenous Mexicans in the mid-16th century, so after the Spaniards had come, but not long after. And it talks about what? Migration, right? Migration, the Hopis, right? Talks about migration. So Carrasco got a team together, right? These Mesoamerican scholars, and they spent 5 years research, and there's 15 of them. Spent 5 years researching and writing about this map. And anyhow, what does the map tell us? Well, the map tells the story of the people of Aztlán, right? The people of Aztlán, and how they rescue a city, a sacred city that's under attack, and as a result, they're granted permission by the divine, right, the Great Spirit, to travel long distance and find a city where they can settle and a land promised to them. And that's what they did. The Mexica Azteca, they found a city there in Mexico, right? And had a great empire and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so what does David Carrasco say? David says this, that the claims of the Chicano activists, right? The Chicano movement is true, right? That the Mexica Azteca, right? They did come from the southwest of the U.S., and according to the Hopi, they've made now their final migration, right? That missing last they had to return to the southwest, right? They've done it. So he actually, David Carrasco, right, Harvard University Divinity School, right, affirms it, right? Affirms Aztlán. So that's the where. So we talked about, again, today, the where, the when, and the why, right? So this is not to say that only Chicanos are going to manifest immortality. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this final migration to the southwest needed to take place. It needed to take place because we're all, the Hopis all needed to be back, right, in the place of the origin, needed to take place for this prophecy to unfold where we all, right, Asians, Europeans, Africans, Chicanos, Hopis, indigenous people of the Americas are able to come together and live in peace and harmony with each other, but also, right, destroy that materialism. And how do we destroy that materialism? And this is the very last piece of today's episode. By manifesting immortality, right? Silicon Valley billionaires are trying to do it, but they can't. Why? Because they're stuck in that ruthless materialism, right? Ruthless materialism. So it's up to us, right? And when I say us, I don't just mean Chicanos, I mean all of us, right? The humble people, right? As Tony Moore, as the Hopis would say. The meek, as the great teacher would say. Those that have been pressed to the margins, right? As Toni Morrison would say. The spiritual misfits, as I would say. It's up to us to manifest immortality, right? To, if you're like me, past your ideal age, celebrate those reverse birthdays, right? Speak it into existence, right? Talk better about yourself than you do your plans. Stop saying that you're getting old, right? Stop saying that you're knocking on death's door, right? Stop saying that you and those around you are over the hill, right? We got to manifest that immortality. So I'm going to end here with an announcement, or to reemphasize the announcement made earlier. The next Sunday, December 6th, first Sunday of the month, we're back with my monthly mailbag. Same time, same channel, right? Same bat time, same bat channel. My monthly mailbag number 2. So please don't forget to pre-submit your questions. So send your question via text, if you have my phone number, via IM, DM, or you can submit it via the website, www.dailydivinitycoach.com, where you can also learn about reverse birthdays and other things. You can learn about me and request one-on-one free divinity coaching for up to 45 minutes. You can request free scientific prayer. And when I do the scientific prayer, yes, I do call my mom, who's retired, and she gets really excited because she loves this stuff, because she says her intention is only to please the divine. That she loves doing scientific prayer because she knows it works, and when it works, it shows that the divine is still in the business of answering prayers. So that's why I call her, because I know her intention is pure, and at the end of the day, it's about intention. If you want to manifest immortality, it's about intention. Why do you want to do it? Is it because you want to control it, own it, and sell it to your friends like the Silicon Valley billionaires? Or is it because you want to manifest social justice, right? You want to manifest peace and harmony, right? You want to manifest this brotherhood or the sisterhood that the Hopi talk about. So anyhow, I'm going to end there. I am so grateful for you joining live. And for those of you watching the recording or will be watching the recording, I'm overflowing with gratitude for you all. I'm very grateful for this platform to talk about these things. I've been blessed with great teachers. I named one of them today, David Carrasco, actually 2, Cornell West. Well, 3, my mother. And so it's a privilege and honor to be able to give back in this forum. So thank you. I hope you can join next week. Please pre-submit questions if you have them. I ask them to be pre-submitted. That way I can give thoughtful responses. So enjoy the rest of your day or night, depending on where you're at. And hopefully you can join live next week. But again, I always record the videos and upload them. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my reading glasses. Soon enough, I'll have 20/20 vision again as I'm reversing the aging process. But I'm going to put these on and here. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.